This was at least 3 years ago. 3 years to date when I started getting involved in emotional intelligence, not just learning it, but applying it to our business. And I want to take it all the way back to about 3 years ago, maybe four at this point, to why I got involved because the why was huge for us. I realized putting together a company is a lot more work and has a lot more involvement than just piecing together a business plan and taking action. There are a lot of emotions that come with managing a business. Yet, having all of this different knowledge has helped me expand it over the years, but tenfold. And I remember not having had this knowledge of emotional intelligence at the time, being in a different country, doing so in a different language, having people help me be part of a team, and having that block of communication. When I discovered emotional intelligence, it wasn't just emotional intelligence to me. It was all four of those pillars. And really, today, what I want to do is I want to take it back to where and why I got started, break down those pillars for you, give some stories and some real life examples of how emotional intelligence has elevated my life and my business tenfold, like I've already mentioned, and give you some real life tools that you can apply right here and right now. So, like I said, about 3, 4 years ago, when I really got involved, it was about the same time, if you listen to other podcast episodes, when I got involved with neurolinguistic programming. Neurolinguistic programming changed my life, but that is another episode that you guys can tune into. Right now, I want to talk about emotional intelligence. And to be completely honest with you, I got involved with emotional intelligence because of a really, really close friend of mine. He was telling me about a program. I started reading books about it because I was curious, yet the program was in the United States. And if you've listened to other episodes, you guys will know that I lived in Europe for about 6, 7 years. And so my 20s, majority of my 20s, pretty much all of my 20s was spent in Europe between Italy and Spain. If this resonated with you, we'd love to have you part of the community. Go ahead and check out wearemovewithintention.com. You can apply there for one of our programs to see if we can serve you in the best possible way. And I dabbled in Croatia when I was 19, 20, but majority of the time Italy and Spain. And so these programs that we were researching and that we were finding were normally based in the United States. And I'm American, so yes, I can come and go, but with my work visa and with my responsibilities in Spain, I had to figure out a way to make it work. So in the meantime, I was reading books, I was doing online courses and trainings, and then I actually went to an in-person emotional intelligence training, did a leadership program too, and that changed the game. It piqued my curiosity. It made me want to investigate more and more and more and really dive deep into emotional intelligence. People don't know what emotional intelligence is. We've gotten a lot of questions on our posts, which is so awesome because we love the curiosity about what is emotional intelligence? What is it really when you break it down? Is it the same as IQ? No. The thing is, it's not the same as IQ. It has nothing to do necessarily with you being smart mathematically or with numbers or even school smart. My dad used to say, you're either street smart or you're school smart. But little did my dad know that you could actually become both if you are conscious and aware of the emotional intelligence skills that you learn and that you begin to apply. Because it doesn't take just reading a book to learn about emotional intelligence. What I learned is that when I learned the different tools and techniques, I actually had to apply them in real time to be able to grow my emotional intelligence muscle. Because without that practice and that constant repetition, my emotional intelligence was never going to grow and it was never going to go anywhere. It was simply something that I read in a book where I saw online that looked good, that sounded good, but without actually feeling it and experiencing it in real time, it's really hard to learn and apply, but it can change your life if you choose to do so. And so a couple of years ago, like I said, I got involved. I went through a training, I went through different courses, certifications, and I saw a huge shift in myself. And when you feel and see a huge shift in yourself, what does that also mean? It means that every other area, every other aspect of your life is also going to be encountering a huge shift. It was like that ripple effect. I noticed that the calm that I had found inside of myself rippled through into Move with Intention. It rippled into my relationship with Yvonne. It rippled into my family, into my friendships. And it also helped me become way more connected to myself than I'd ever been before. And so there are four different pillars that I want to talk about today. I'm going to give stories and examples about why I got involved, why it matters, why was it so important to me to not only start a business, bring people together with intention to better their health, better themselves, and become their very best versions while implementing emotional intelligence. Because at the end of the day, your IQ gets you in the door, but your EQ is what keeps you in the room. And I learned that from an early age on, working in corporate, doing event planning. I saw a lot of really smart people and I got to meet a lot of them face to face. But when we had those encounters, there was almost a block, you could say, in communication. It was that interpersonal communication that was really something that I felt lacked in a lot of those corporate areas. Not in all of them, of course, but in a lot of them, especially when it came to customer contact and having to put themselves out there, whether it was in person or on the phone. I remember that was actually one of my strengths back in college when I was doing internships and programs was picking up the phone or just going to a client in person and being like, "Hey, this is what we're going to do. What do you think? Let's break this down." Making it super personal. Not everybody has that skill, and that is EQ because your way of communicating with others dictates your emotions and how you manage those emotions. And emotional intelligence, like I said, are those four pillars. It's your self management, so how you relate with yourself, like I said, controlling your emotions. It's also social, so how you perceive other people, how you bounce ideas off of other people, the way you communicate with other people, the emotions that other people might throw at you, consciously or unconsciously, and how you react to them in any given situation. It's also all about relationships. Your relationships say a lot about you. And I remember back 3, 4 years ago, my relationship said a lot about me, that I was the let's do everything girl, yes girl, and people pleaser. And I realized by doing and studying emotional intelligence that people pleasing was getting me nowhere really, really fast. And so, dialing down and diving deeper into emotional intelligence, I said goodbye to my people pleasing tendencies because at the end of the day, if you are people pleasing, whether it's conscious or unconscious, you're hurting yourself in the long run because you're doing things and going out of your way to make other people feel good with the discretion of you not feeling good at the end of the day. So you're putting yourself out there for others, but at the end of the day, you're not feeling your very best. And I think that when I realized that, I started to put it into play. I started to use the word no a whole lot more. And I could actually use the word no with kindness. Can you imagine? I remember learning this key concept of emotional intelligence. You can say no. In fact, you get to say no and still be a loving and kind person. I had no idea when I was younger, and I wish that I would have known sooner, but I'm grateful that I know now that I can say no and I can have boundaries and I can have limitations on my relationships, on what I do, what I don't do, where I go, where I don't go, who I surround myself and who I don't surround myself with. And that's okay. That is okay. It's okay for you. It's okay for me. It's okay for all of us to have those limits and those boundaries, but it starts with communication directly with ourselves. So, emotional intelligence totally elevated my relationships, my connection to myself, my time management. Can you imagine my self management, the way that I organized my time, where I was putting my energy? Because we all know where energy goes, it grows and it flows. And so, if we have our energy everywhere all over the table, what are we actually going to get accomplished? I learned this the hard way. I remember saying in another podcast episode, I'm sure by now, I used to wear multitasker as a badge of honor. I used to think that that was the coolest thing that I had developed, the best skill that I had going because I could do so many things at the same time. But then I realized I was robbing myself of being present. Emotional intelligence helped me get that back. It helped me slow down, become much more aware of myself and my energy, where I was putting that energy, and then how I wanted to regulate my time, my schedule, my way and not worry about what other people were thinking, how other people were judging me. Because honest to God, if other people are judging what you do with your time, then they're just wasting their time doing something that's not going to help them grow, evolve, or learn new skills. And that is a direct mirror and reflection on themselves. If this resonated with you, we'd love to have you part of the community. Go ahead and check out wearemovewithintention.com. You can apply there for one of our programs to see if we can serve you in the best possible way. So, like Mel Robbins says, let them. Just let them. If somebody is going to say something about you, your choices, what you're doing with your life, what you're not doing with your life, just let them. That is the power of emotional intelligence. And so the next part that I want to chat about with you guys is the how. So, how did I learn all of this? Like I said, we did courses, trainings, programs. I went in person. I got involved in a couple of different organizations. And then I started implementing it into Move with Intention. Not only in our in person events, but online events, in our trainings, in our courses, in our programs with one on one and group clients. We started diving into emotional intelligence because I realized these gifts that I learned through stories and experiences that I'm going to share with you guys here, I changed, I shifted. I became way more connected to myself and more in my power than ever by utilizing these tools. And this isn't something that you learn and you read a book one time and then you apply it and boom, it's done. No, this is the special sauce of getting to choose, because choice is the ultimate power here, choose to use it in the moment when the emotions rise. And this came from Robert from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. When emotions rise, intelligence falls. And when you are a person who is emotionally intelligent, you're able to ground yourself in the moment, connect to the bigger picture, decide, and then take action. Instead of allowing those emotions to just grab you by the throat and then throw you into whatever spontaneously comes up. And our bodies are programmed. I know that mine for a long time was programmed to react in certain ways, especially around people yelling or raising their voices. Not a big fan. Still not a big fan today, but it doesn't trigger me or make me feel a certain way like it used to when I was younger before I had the emotional intelligence base and background. Getting into the how. How did I start learning emotional intelligence? Like I said, trainings, courses, books, videos, real in-person programs and experiences. And to be completely honest with you guys, just getting uncomfortable. Because if you're here to learn emotional intelligence and you're expecting to be comfortable throughout the journey, you're wrong and you should probably look into something else. Emotional intelligence is super uncomfy. Why do you think I like it so much? I am the comfort zone crusher. I do not like a comfort zone. Therefore, I do not like comfort. So this pushed me, it stretched me, it made me think and think again, which is why I loved it, because it helped me level up not only who I am as a person, how I run this business, how I show up day in and day out, my communication skills. Seriously, guys, it touched so many aspects and parts of my life. I can't say enough about it, and that's why we implement it into everything. Whether it's training with us one-on-one, doing group coaching, or having us come in for a corporate training. I have seen so many businesses not utilizing EQ, emotional intelligence, and losing so much money, leaving so much potential on the table. But back to the story. I want to explain a couple of different ways that I learned, a couple of hows, because like I said, it is real life application here. This is not something you read in a book and you get it right away. No, you have to choose. You have to flex your choice muscle. Flex your choice muscle, because the more you flex it, the bigger it grows. The bigger it grows, the more it becomes automatic. And the more it becomes automatic, the better you get, the better I get at having emotional intelligence. Okay? So I want to take it back to our biggest retreat to date. I had been doing retreats in Spain, some here in the States, and they were small, maybe 3, 4, 5 days maximum. So it wasn't a full week, and they were very economical. And I love this because I believe transformation should be open to everyone, no matter where they find themselves during their journey. However, I personally wanted to stretch myself and take on something bigger, and bigger is exactly what I went for. I literally went from $400, $500, $600 retreats all the way to $4,000 retreats. If you don't think that this stretched me, think again. I was beyond stretched. The first couple of months, I was excited. I was confident. I had this deep feeling, this deep knowing inside that everything was going to work out. And even during the extra months that were following those other months, when it was panic, stress, doubt, even despair, I got to be completely vulnerable and honest with you guys. It was some tough months that I had to go through, but in the end, I realized that I was still being emotionally intelligent during that entire process. If I didn't have the soft skills that I learned through those programs, through those trainings, how to manage my emotions during something that was such a big project. Not only was it an expense that I was taking on as a company, but it was finding the people. Imagine that you have lived the last 10 years of your life basically either in college or out of the country. And now you're back in the country and you're like, all right, I don't really know anyone, but let's do this thing. That's basically what I did. If this resonated with you, we'd love to have you part of the community. Go ahead and check out wearemovewithintention.com. You can apply there for one of our programs to see if we can serve you in the best possible way. I am kind of a risk taker. You might categorize me or profile me in the more risky side of things, and maybe not everyone is like this. That is totally okay. But emotional intelligence came in and saved the day in many different ways during this situation and this circumstance. So, first couple months, awesome. Marketing on par. I had my team in Spain helping me, and it was awesome. I was so excited. I was actually finishing retreats in Spain. I was in Italy. I came back to the States, and then January came. My retreat was in March, so about 3 months out. I think I only had 4 people signed up at that point, and that meant I needed about 4 more, which doesn't seem like a lot. And I totally understand this, and I realized this, and I accepted this. I was like, Lacey, this is not a lot of people. Imagine that I was trying to fill a room of 100 or 1,000 people in a giant venue. No, it wasn't the case. However, it was high ticket and it was luxury transformation. It was experimental, it was hands on. You can't have the kind of person that comes into an event and just says, fix me. Those kind of people can't sign up for events like this because that is just not how it goes. You have to be willing when you come into events like this to do the work. And the work doesn't mean that it's hard. The work doesn't mean that it's boring. The work means that you're just taking action, conscious action towards the things that you want and who you want to become. So I needed to find 4 or 5 more people for this retreat. And I remember shifting from excited, empowered, confident down to doubt. This was the first time that those little thoughts were coming back up into my head after a long, long time, probably years at this point, of what are you doing? You are so in over your head. You should have never taken this on. The shoulds, the nevers, the what are you doings. And I was like, okay, we have to figure out a way to push these thoughts aside, not let them take over who I am because they are not who I am. I did this with intention. I took this on with intention, knowing that it would not be easy because if it's easy, everyone's going to do it. And if it's easy, where is it growing me? Probably nowhere. A lot of times people want the ease, and I have been there at times where I just wanted the easy way out, the trail that everyone takes so there's no weeds and I'm not stepping over random things and the path is nice and paved. But in this case, I knew if I wanted to level up, not only my retreat game, Move with Intentions retreat game, I wanted to level up my skills as a leader, then I was going to go for this opportunity because this was an amazing opportunity. And we as a company were so excited to take this on. So, stress, despair came up, some panic. It was not cute. I reached out for help. That is something that I learned with EQ, not doing it all on your own because guess what? We're human and we don't have to do it all on our own. I learned that as a huge lesson. And I remember when I learned that, I started to apply it in this very situation. I reached out to my coaches. I reached out to friends. I reached out to family. I started asking people to help me spread the word. I started getting creative because the thing is, when things are easy, your brain isn't active. When things are hard, your brain has to be active. In fact, our brains are forced to be active, to become creative, to become resilient, and to find a way to figure this out. And so, in finding a way to figure this out and to find a solution for this, I got creative. I got crafty. I started creating up different offers. I started reaching out to couples. I started reaching out to friends to come together. And at the end of the day, those skills of emotional intelligence saved me so much stress. Though it was a stressful period of time, but I can only imagine what it would have felt like if I was an emotionally intelligent person. Because by being creative, by being crafty, I found a solution. I filled the spots. I had an amazing women's retreat in Mexico, and that retreat was only the beginning. Did we have hiccups? Yes, 100%. Did team members last minute not be able to come? Yep. And who got to be the lead of everything? Me. So it was extra heavy on my shoulders, but I had been strong enough, flexing my emotional intelligence muscle, like I said before, time over time, that I got to carry that on my back, not with so much difficulty as it used to be, but almost with ease. And I know that is a lot to say because it takes a lot to get there. You have to flex your muscle over and over and over again. But that's just a story that we actually took all of our skills and applied it to that situation. Because if I'm here and my team is there and one of my team members can't come last minute and the chef isn't also available the week of the event, that takes a lot of management of emotions. That takes a lot of control and conscious awareness of this isn't working. We know that. Let's not fixate on the problem. What's the solution? What's the next best thing that we can do to move forward? Because there was no canceling. There was no going back in time and changing things. They were as they were. And that is where my acceptance came into play. How can we make this the best case scenario, anyways? And from there, we had an amazing experience. And we're actually planning on going back and we're planning that out right now for 2026. So that is just one of the stories of how we utilized emotional intelligence in real life. If this resonated with you, we'd love to have you part of the community. Go ahead and check out wearemovewithintention.com. You can apply there for one of our programs to see if we can serve you in the best possible way. Something that I want to share with you that you guys can do right now, you can apply it in real time, is an EQ tool that we share with a lot of our clients. In fact, I just did it last week with someone, and I do it with myself often. And so basically, it's just the ends. The ends, and it's a good way to remember it because all these words start with the letter N. So first of all, I want you to name it. A feeling creeps up, okay, an unwanted feeling, whether it's anxiety or panic or stress, and it's knocking on your door. So why don't you just call it out and name it? What I like to do is I like to be like, I am feeling X, Y, and Z. Not that I am not this emotion, but I'm feeling this way. Okay, so call it out. I am feeling stressed. I am feeling overwhelmed. Okay, and then after you name it, you call it out so it's not so deep. At this point, we're gonna make it even less significant in the next step, which is normalize it. Normalize it. Realize that you're a human, I'm a human, and we feel emotions. That's the beauty of being a human. How do you normalize it? You say, okay, this too shall pass. For example, I say that very often. I know that everything is temporary, even happiness is temporary. So, how can I just remind myself and my body that this is going to pass? This feeling of panic, this feeling of stress, this feeling of anxiety, it's going to pass. It can't stay with me forever. And in fact, it's not going to stay with me forever. Convince myself that it is about to go right now. After you name it, after you normalize it, I want you to neutralize it. How do you neutralize it? You take away the power that you had been giving it first and foremost. I know for me, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I name it, I feel overwhelmed. This too shall pass. How can I shift? I ask myself, I get curious. My neutralization is curiosity. I go to curiosity. I wonder to myself, or I even talk to myself out loud, why is this showing up? And what is this teaching me? And how can I step away from this emotion to look as if it's a mirror looking at me, teaching me something? There's always something to learn. There's always something to take away. It doesn't have to overtake us. It doesn't have to hijack our entire day. In fact, we could learn something from it. And that way, when it comes back and it creeps and it knocks on the door, you could actually say, and I can say, hey, we don't have time for this right now. We've already called you out. We've already normalized it and neutralized it. There's no space for you here, bucko. You can move on. That's a really, really, really simple EQ tool that you can do when emotions rise up or when you feel stressed. And the last thing that I want to share with you guys is what I learned. And I could sit here all day long and tell you the things that I have learned from EQ and that I continue to learn from EQ, but I'm just going to hone in on a couple of really big ones. First and foremost, like I mentioned before, we get to say no, we get to have boundaries, and we are still kind, loving people. That goes for anyone, anywhere, in any situation. Utilizing EQ through the stories that I've already shared here and many, many, many others, I realized that I can say no and still be an awesome person. Also, that I can make decisions really, really fast. I don't need to go back and forth. I don't need to have the conversations in my head. Good angel, bad angel, yes and no. Then there's that gray area of a maybe. We hate maybes. What is a maybe? That's just kind of leading us on like, well, I'm thinking about it, or maybe no. It's a yes or a no. My coach used to always say, you're pregnant or you're not. And I love that, and it's stuck with me to this very day. It's a yes or a no. It's not an in between. And learning EQ helped me become such a more decisive person so much quicker because I know what I'm evaluating. I know who I am. I know my values. And therefore, I can make a quick decision based on my logic and my values. And the last thing that I'll share is that when you are in a leadership position, when you are working with your customer, with your client, when you're constantly communicating, what I have learned from EQ is that we can be so much more powerful, so much more in alignment with ourselves when emotions are not driving our choices. Emotions don't need to be the drivers for our choices. Many times we run on autopilot and we run automatically, both our bodies and our brains, that emotions overcome and overtake us, rather. And then those decisions are not actually the ones that we would have made if we were grounded and centered. When you utilize EQ in real time, you are able to pull in that grounding and centered feeling and make a decision from that space, not from the noise, not from the chaos, not from other people's perspectives or opinions outside of you, but right here, grounded and in your power. If this episode was helpful, go ahead and share it with a friend, share it with someone who would love to learn more about EQ. And thank you guys for watching. Please give us a follow here. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, TikTok, you name it, we are there. We would love to hear from you. Go ahead and comment below if you've ever utilized EQ in a real life situation and it has saved your butt, because I know I have, and I'm excited that I got to share some of those stories with you guys here today. Until next time, keep moving with intention, and I can't wait to see you back here soon.